Let me take you to the agenda. The presentation starts by throwing a light on, do we really need quantum computers, and how does a paradigm shift bring you to the quantum computing and some fundamentals of quantum computer, and an interesting hands-on demo to understand how a quantum circuit works inside a quantum computer, and the state of art algorithms and the future evolution and the career path and job opportunities for people who are interested in quantum computing will be furnished at the end of the presentation. So this is supposed to be a taste giver. This is like an appetizer for guys who are interested in quantum computing. Quantum computing is a field which deals with mathematics, physics, and computer science. It is very, very interesting and promising and evolving field. Let me start with the first title, Need for Quantum Computers. We really have very good computers, supercomputers. We have computers from small laptops, notebooks, still supercomputers. But do we really need quantum computers? Let's have a look at the short history of how computers evolved. The first generation of computers were invented during the year 1946 to 1959. This is the picture of ENIAC. This is one of the first generation computers. This is one computer. This room contains the elements of one single computer. This is a room of 30 cross 50 foot. Okay. Now the computers we have is very small. Even our laptop is like 30 centimeter cross 20 centimeter. But the first generation computer we had of size 30 cross 50 foot, and those computers are made up of around 17,468 vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes, you can imagine vacuum tubes as your bulbs. You have bulbs in your home, the yellow bulbs. You can imagine vacuum tubes of that sort of size. And you have around 70,000 resistors and 10,000 capacitors. And the capacity of the first generation computer was very good. Like it adds around 5,000 numbers in 1 second, which was outstandingly good at that period of time. Nowadays, the computer started evolving from the first generation, from vacuum tubes. It became, people started reducing the size by putting transistors, replacing vacuum tubes. Then came ICs, the next generation of computers. That is the third generation, integrated circuits. Then people wanted to further reduce the size to microchips. So this started happening. Like we have to make things smaller and smaller. After microprocessor, we are not going any further smaller. So this was observed by Gordon Moore. Gordon Moore is the co-founder of Intel Corporation. So he was observing from 1965 that every 2 years, the number of transistors getting stacking upon on a microchip got doubled. So he came up with an idea called Moore's law, and it is very famous. Anybody who starts to learn quantum computing will be informed about Moore's law first. The number of transistors on a microchip doubles approximately every year. That is like roughly once in 18 months, he was observing that it is getting double. So why should they double the amount? Because we want the computers to work faster and faster in small amount of time. We want computers to do more work, because earlier in 1940s adding 5,000 numbers in 1 second was the need for us, but now adding millions of numbers in 1 second is our need now. So what happened is, to increase the number of transistors, people started decreasing the size of transistors. There are two ways to increase the number of transistors in a microchip. One is to decrease the size of transistor, other is to do layering. So either I have to decrease the size of the transistor, or I have to layer microchip one by one. It's like stacking them. But still, when layering is not so efficient, so they are trying to decrease the size of the transistor. And the prediction is that if we keep on decreasing the size of the transistor might reach to the size of an atom by the year 2030. And already it was tested in Hebrew University of Jerusalem in July 2020. With a single atom, they tried to mimic the activity of a transistor. Transistor is nothing but it's a small semiconductor device which helps you to build communication devices. Those who studied electronics might know very well about transistors. The size of the single atom transistor was around 2 nanometer. I think phosphorus atom was used to build a single atom transistor. Next, let's imagine how the computer has transformed in speed, because we are trying to bring down the size of transistor to increase the efficiency. Did we achieve in it? This was the first Intel's microprocessor, or in other words, chip. This is what you find in your inside your motherboard. This is the first one developed by Intel in the year 1971. The name of this microprocessor is Intel 4004. It had 2250 transistors, and the size of each transistor was around 10 into 10 power minus 6 meter. The speed of this processor is 740 kilohertz. Now, the recent fastest processor available is AMD's EPIC Rome, which was released in 2019, which had 39.5 billion transistors. Imagine the first processor had only 2000 transistors, and now we are having around 39.5 billion transistors. The size of transistor is 7 into 10 power 9 meter, which is nanometer. So it got reduced 1000 times smaller, and the speed is 3.5 gigahertz. The speed of the processor got increased to 3500 times faster. This is the use of reducing the size of transistor and putting them together in a place. You may ask, like, why should I reduce the size? Why can't I keep it as it is? I can add more transistor in a very bigger computer. But that has efficiency problem. You won't be able to achieve much speed when you put lots and lots of transistor in a bigger box. You have to bring it down to a smaller box. Okay, this is the speed up we achieved in the past 30-40 years. But what's going to happen in future? Because we cannot reduce it any further. If we are reducing the size of the transistor further, then we have to reach atomic size. It was proved that performance is indirectly proportional to, or inversely proportional to, the size. When the size of the computer goes down, the performance increase, because shorter the distance between the communication devices, faster the travel will be. Because when the size, or when the distance increases in between them, what happens is energy dissipation happens, and we have to boost the communication. That will create a short delay in it. So the next attempt to reduce the size of the transistors to atomic level, but the question is, computer becoming smaller, will they accomplish their mission, or we expect them to work when it goes to atomic level also? What is the difficulty in atomic level? Computer cannot become smaller anymore, because at atomic level the computer starts behaving wild. Let me give an example. We should imagine that there are two different worlds. One is visible world, another is atomic world. In visible world, whatever you think happens, like whatever intuitively, like, things will follow your intuition. When I throw a ball to the wall, it bounces back. This happens in the visible world, but this will not happen in the atomic world. When I throw an atom over a wall, the atom penetrates the wall. The atom has the possibility to go in infinite number of directions. That to predict how the atom works in atomic world, we have a special field called quantum mechanics, which was pioneered by a famous scientist called Richard Feynman. He is the father of quantum computing. In the last 30 years, we achieved around 3500 speed. But in the next 30 years, we can get only 50-fold speed. That is the only way to achieve the speed. So the present mechanism to reduce the size of computer will not work, and the Moore's law is going to die soon, because we may not be able to stack double the number of transistors in another 2 years. That is impossible, and it is starting now. Like the doubling the transistor got reduced now. So we need to go for a different paradigm. We should not rely on the transistors, microchips, all those things. Earlier we had vacuum tubes, then there came a shift and we found transistors, then we embedded transistors in ICs, and ICs became smaller to microprocessors and chips. Now we have to think something different, that is need for a paradigm shift. I hope I justified why we need quantum computers. What is the paradigm shift? Let me explain you how the paradigm shift works, how scientists, physicists were able to say that there is a paradigm shift which will help us to increase the speed. I'm going to explain now. Earlier, people believed that light is a wave. Physicists always imagined light as a wave. Then came a scientist called Young. He performed an experiment called Young's double slit experiment, and he proved that light is not a wave, and light also behaves as a particle. So light has a dual property. It behaves as waves as well as particle. Imagine that you have a ball. When you throw, it will hit a wall and it will come back. But when you close your eyes and throw, it will not come back. It will become like a water ball, and it will penetrate the wall and goes to the other side of the wall. This is how light behaves. Sometimes, that is, when we don't observe, atoms behave as atoms, lights, photons, electrons, all those subatomic world particles. That is, earlier told you that there are two worlds. The second world, that is the microscopic atomic world, behavior is totally weird, and it is experimentally proved that the behavior is counterintuitive. Okay, it is experimentally proved. So this is not a fictional story. It is experimentally proved that when I don't look at an electron, the electron spreads itself as a wave. Whenever I say a word wave, you should think of a pond full of water, a still pond, an unagitated pond full of water, and when you drop a stone on the pond, waves will be created. So you should imagine that ripples. When I say the word wave, you should imagine those ripples. So when we don't observe an electron, the electron lies as a wave. And when I take an electron microscope and look at it, the electron gets its wave collapsed and it becomes a particle or a ball-like structure. So this property will help us to create a new paradigm, and I'll explain you some special peculiar counterintuitive properties of electrons, atoms, and subatomic particles. Subatomic particles means particles like electrons, atoms, protons, neutrons, photons, like a lot of physics words. Don't worry about too much of physics words. I'll give you an example. Okay, there are two special characters of quantum computers or electrons, which will help us to create a new type of computer. Okay, one is called quantum superposition. Okay, let's say that there are two friends, Alice and Bob. Okay, Alice and Bob are very close friends. We can find, like, when I ask where is Alice or where is Bob, the answer will be either in hostel or college. We can position them in one place. We can get the coordinates, or we can get the place with one word. You can say, like, if Alice is in college, people will say Alice is in college. If he is in hostel, they will say she's in hostel. But a subatomic particle will not be present in a single place. It sits in multiple places. That quality is called quantum superposition. If I have an electron inside my room, I cannot say where that electron is exactly inside the room. The electron spreads itself as a wave. Imagine that the electron has become like a wave and it fills my room with a lot of wave, like its waves. This is where an electron exists. This is called quantum superposition concept. And the next thing, the next peculiar counterintuitive property of a quantum computer is, let's say Alice and Bob are very close friends. They are, and Alice is sitting in the college and Bob is in hostel. Okay, he bunked the class. If Alice gets scolding from the faculty in the college, Bob will not get affected because he doesn't know what is happening to Alice, because both of them are in two remote places. But this is not true in the case of electrons. There is a special procedure called entanglement. Using that entanglement, we can bind two electrons. We can create a friendship between two electrons and we can keep them in two different worlds. When I disturb one electron, the disturbance is getting reflected in the other electron. This is called quantum entanglement property. This looks so fictional to us, but this was proved in China and somewhere in an African continent. Scientists took two electrons, they created entanglement between those electrons. They kept one electron in the land and in the country, and they took the other electron around 300-400 kilometers away to another island. They made change in one electron and they saw the second electron also getting affected because of the change in one electron. Nobody knows till now why this happens, what is there in between them which makes the change. Because if I make a phone call to any of you, we know that how the phone call is being made. It uses waves, satellites, and the phone call gets transferred. My voice goes to you. But scientists still don't know how the change in one electron is changing the other electron. We can imagine that there is something which is invisible is getting making them connected. These are all the superposition and entanglement, or the heroes or the counterintuitive properties which we are going to harness, which we are going to use to make a lot of change in the quantum computing world. Example, if I want to solve a system of equation, or if I want to solve a single equation, solving an equation means there will be an equation. I have to try different value for x, and finally one value of x will give me 0. This is called solving of an equation. In normal classical computer, I have to use n step to solve it. Let's say the formula is x plus 3 is equal to 0. The formula is x plus 3 equal to 0. To solve this equation, I will try first x equal to 0. Yeah, it is not solved. When x equal to 1, it will not get solved. When x equal to 2, it will not get solved. When x equal to 3, x minus 3 will become 0. So x equal to 3 is the solution. So I have to try testing n numbers in a classical computer. But in a quantum computer, I need not do it n times. I can solve this in a single step using an algorithm called Deutsch algorithm, which uses the property of superposition. Because we can save a lot of space in quantum computer, because we have classical bits in classical computer. In quantum computer, we have something called qubits or quantum bits, which can store a lot of information. Lot in the sense, if I want to store 10 numbers or 10 binary digits, I need 10 registers. Okay, if I want to store 1000 binary digits, I need 1000 registers. But in quantum computer, I can store 1000 binary digits in very small amount of register. That is very less. Only 10 quantum register can store 1024 classical bits. This capacity is achieved in quantum computer with the help of superposition. Because remember, we have two qualities. One is quantum superposition, another is quantum entanglement. So using the superposition quality, we can solve things easily and we can store a lot of information. Okay. Don't worry about the meaning of superposition. Soon in hands-on, we will see some circuits.